don't know what happened there. Somehow the stream got switched off. I'm sorry about that. Everything is good. The internet is good. But somehow it was switched off. Let me just go to my live stream page. I was sitting there doing my silence and doing my talk all for people and there was no one there. It got switched off. It was kind of funny. I don't know how that happened. Yeah, sorry about that, guys. Somehow it got switched off. I must have clicked the wrong button. Luckily I noticed, eh? So welcome. So I start with the introduction now. So I just have to remember, I was just going to see what the title was and then I realized the stream was off. What does non-duality give you? Dun dun dun. What does non-duality give you? Yeah, what does it give you? It doesn't actually give you anything. Non-duality has absolutely nothing to do with you. Nothing. Who you are is this consciousness which is free. Or this alive presence, or you could say this moment that is not something that's conscious of something else. So it's not that there's like a consciousness behind here that's conscious of everything. It's not separate from everything. So all there is consciousness, and this is who you are. But what's happened is there's been this contraction that's arisen inside the body, and this identity that's formed that makes it feel like you are the body, that you are somebody inside here, and that consciousness is inside the body, that you're walking around and this consciousness that's everywhere, so your essence which is everywhere and everything and isn't suffering, is kind of sucked into this body, even though it's not really, because there's consciousness and it's everywhere and it's free. But you walk around and there's this feeling that that you're inside the body and you're looking from inside the body. And that you're in relationship with the world. Whereas this is a lie and this isn't true. But that you that wants to wake up is a contraction inside the body. It's a character, it's a person inside the body. It's not actually consciousness. So consciousness doesn't want to wake up or sleep. Consciousness is inherently free. It's nature, who you are, who's looking now, who's experiencing, is free. And it's got nothing to do with this person that wants a better future or wants to wake up in the future or wants something different from this moment. Consciousness is only ever here. It's still and it's silent and it's in all things. It's no thing, not one thing that you can find, and it's all things, everything. There's not really much more that can be said about it. It's free, it's here. What creates the illusion of the person is this seeking. You'll notice the person is always seeking for something. So at the moment I'm looking after my friend's dogs, so there's 2 dogs, and we're a mammal, so we've got similarity to dog, even though we've got more intelligent brain. And the dogs, when I look at the dogs, and I'm sure other people interpret their behavior really differently, but when I look at them, what I see is these animals that are always looking for food and to put themselves in the best position to possibly get food and to move towards that which makes them stronger in order to get food. And it's all about food. So if I sit down on the sofa, the little dog associates that the strongest, highest position is to be on my lap. The closer he can be to me, then the more powerful he is, and then the more he can obtain food and he can survive better. Whereas Khaleesi, because she's not a domesticated dog and she doesn't have the genetics of a domesticated dog, she doesn't have that tendency to think that I'm her source of food, even though I give her food. So she comes to me for food, and when she's hungry, she like stamps her foot and looks at me and is like, woof! She is very aloof, and she prefers to sit in the garden, and she's like stalking things and watching things, and sit on the balcony and watch. And she doesn't see me just as her piece of meat or piece of chicken, even though she associates it with me to an extent. And when they're together, like Khaleesi doesn't like him always jumping on me and being on my lap, because she sees that as competition. So she'd prefer he doesn't. She doesn't really try to stop him, but if she can, she'll run in front of him so he can't get up, or she'll try to compete to an extent, but she's not a needy dog at all, because genetically she's not got domestication in her. We bred dogs to be dependent and needy on us so we could manipulate them to do things for us. So we bred this. And we've also bred in our society that we're all dependent on each other for food. So therefore we're all very social animals because we're all dependent on each other for food. So I see humans as exactly the same. Fundamentally what it comes down to is everyone is trying to survive, and we've got all these layers of bullshit story on top. That, oh no, I love him for the rest of my life and we're soulmates, or I want to have a child because I feel like more spiritually minded people and like-minded people should have children, or I want to have a child so I can give it a better life than what I've had, or whatever it is. Whereas actually, fundamentally, in all of these initial urges that come up into the body, it's about surviving and carrying on the survival of the human race. And then we put our romantic stories to it, which I don't mind. I mean, it's all stories, and even me talking about the evolution of a human race is a story in a way. But I think that it makes it a lot more simpler for you if you're realistic about what your urges are and what other people's urges are. And we get into so many complicated dynamics and dramas because we're not willing to admit what it is we want in each moment. And normally what we want is to be in the best possible position for survival, whether that be feel loved, whether that be having food, whether that having a good job, whether it be getting on with people. All of these are about survival. So the human surviving. And then what we do is we form this person that's got to survive. So then we form, so not only do we have the urges, so we have this urge and instinct to survive, we then create this character which we believe ourselves to be. So we have this image, we form this image in our mind, which is normally a projection of our bodies in our mind, and we hold it there, and then we begin to form a story of this person. And then this person kind of is all meshed in with survival, but this person doesn't want to admit it. So the person wants to come across as a nice person, and it has no clue that being a nice person, the reason that it wants to be a nice person is because it makes your survival better. If you can get on with people, if you can be conscientious, if other people like you, then your survival is better. So it wants to be a nice person. It wants to have the most beautiful girlfriend. Like, why do you think that you want to have the most beautiful girlfriend? It's because of survival, because you're designed, because you're set up to have the most beautiful girlfriend. Like, because a beautiful girlfriend is only our beauty, or the way that we determine beauty in our society is by two factors. First factor is natural, the natural beauty that we see, which is a woman that's most fertile. So a woman with hips, with curves, they say that these are the women that are most fertile, red lips, black eyes, high cheekbones, all of this strong jaw is strong testosterone, and this shows strong fertility. So that's one element of beauty. The other element of beauty is cultural popularity. And this, again, is about society, because if you have a beautiful woman, then other people respect you more. Other people respect you more. You've got more chance of doing business. You've got more chance of earning money, and you've got more chance of surviving better. So, but we make all these elaborate stories. The same with a husband. Like, maybe you're set up to go for a husband with money, or maybe you're set up to go for a husband with like physical strength. Both is about surviving and the family surviving, and this guy helping you survive. So, but we've got all these elaborate stories about what's going on, about the love of your life, the soulmate, you complete me, and all these things. The reason that it feels like they complete you is not because there is such a thing as soulmates, or there is this completion between a male and female. It's because in that moment when they want you and you want them, your seeking drops, and then you feel complete in your home. It's not that they complete you. If that was true, then it would mean that happiness is dependent on things that you can obtain and keep. Which, if you want to subscribe and believe that, then fair enough. But this isn't the channel to do that. There's lots of other channels that talk about getting your soulmate and the perfect person. And what else have we got? Having kids. I want to have kids because I want to evolve society, and I want to bring up really like open-minded people that can be inventive and creative and look at life differently. You're genetically set up to want kids because it carries on your genes. So it's about that human line, those genetics carrying on living. So whatever story you tell yourself, it's not you, the one that's creating the story, that's making the action happen. It's a natural instinct that arises in the body, and then there's a story formed that creates you. And then you think that you're doing the action and you're choosing to have kids, whereas it's something that's predetermined billions and billions and billions of years ago. In fact, you could go back forever as to when that action begun. So what about your career? So even if you pick being an artist, being a writer, being an inventor, if you pick being an accountant or business person, whatever job it is you pick, it's about producing money in order to survive in this society, this cooperative society. And even if you're doing your passion, it's still about producing enough money to feed you and to be part of this society. Friendships are the same. Relationships, parents are the same. It's all about supporting each other and surviving, getting on and supporting each other when you need each other. Recently, when a friend of mine lost someone that lost their close and intimate partner, their biggest fear or the biggest they missed the person, but one of the big things that kept coming up again and again and again was that that person always supported them. And now they have no one to support them. So notice that equals survival. If you don't have someone to support you, your survival is weakened. It's totally impersonal. So what happens is we've got this natural survival instinct to move towards pleasure, which is survival, and to move towards away from pain. So we've got this natural survival instinct to act out, and everybody's is different. It doesn't mean that everybody's going to be set up to want the max amount of money. We've all got our roles and our natural urges to act out in this society. So some people might be the creative people, some people might be the business people, some people might be orientated with money, and none of it's better or worse. It's just the way it is. So we have these natural instinct to survive, and then we create this illusory character, and we tell ourselves all types of stories about who this illusory character is and why they do things. And then we get into all these conflicting feelings in our chakra system because things don't work out the way we expect or the way that we want our lives to work out. And we begin to live in this constant world of you, and everything's about you. Everything's circling around what you get. Like your relationships, your job, all your problems are about them not fulfilling you and giving you pleasure. And you want more pleasure, whether it be more happiness, whether it be more freedom, whether it be more sex, whether it be more joy, whether it be more food, whether it be more beauty or more money. You want all those things, and then you begin to see all these things in your life as things that inhibit you or give to you. And you create this identity, and you think that this identity needs to get somewhere and needs to sort itself out. So you think that this identity is one day going to arrive at the place where it has enough pleasure, it will suddenly feel content. That it will have enough things. But it won't, because you're living in a lie. Firstly, you're living in a lie that you exist, that you choose, that you have free will, that you're going to arrive at freedom in the future, that you're going to satisfy yourself in this life, that you're born, that you die, that you're not. Most people can't even admit that all their actions is about survival. As soon as you begin to admit this about yourself, it's so much easier, like, to understand what you want. Otherwise it gets really complicated. Like somebody is late for an arrangement, so they arrange to meet you at a time and they're late for arrangement. So what does that do to you? It makes you feel disempowered, it makes you feel unrespected. Both of these make you a lower person, less likely to survive. It means they've disrespected you, they didn't care about your feelings. That means that you're less important. That means you're further down on the surviving order. What else is there? So they're late for you, then you can't do your business, you're wasting time. Both of those are, you want to be creative, you want to be productive, so for your survival. So you want to be doing things to get on with your life. So just see all of that. So it really bugs you, like you feel like that you're disrespected, you feel like they don't love you or they don't like you. And all of that equals that you're unlovable. Being unlovable means that one day you could potentially be kicked out of this society and be abandoned, and you'd have to survive by yourself. And you presume that would be a failure because we all have to survive together in our current society. But this not acknowledging all of this can get into very complicated dynamics. So if you just acknowledge that and you just feel those feelings, that actually your pain around them being late for you, then the pain is feeling lonely, feeling abandoned, feeling like you'll die ultimately, that you'll be kicked out of society, that you're not good enough. So just acknowledge those feelings. What happens though is when you meet them, what you'll want to do is you'll want to do a power play. You'll want to work out a way to get higher than them, to put them down and make them realize that they've done something bad. So then you'll act out of a power play and then you'll have an argument with them. If you can just admit your feelings, it doesn't mean that you don't tell that person to F, beep, 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 off. Doesn't mean that that's not the right way to, I don't mean to go and say to people when they don't turn up on time for you to F off. That's not the right word. I meant that's not the right way to communicate, but I meant like, it doesn't mean that you don't doesn't mean that you don't stop meeting up with them, like that you don't put up a boundary. You don't say, nope, that's enough, we're not meeting again. But being honest with yourself, it means that when that person finally comes, you won't then put a power play on to try and put them down. You'll acknowledge what's going on, and hopefully then you can say to them, I feel hurt that you were late, or there were other things that I needed to do. And then you can just be honest about that's how you felt. And then hopefully they have a good reason why they were late, and then there can be a communication that's honest. But if you just don't acknowledge it, and you don't acknowledge any of those feelings to yourself, then what you'll do is try and peck them down. So this identity believes that it's real, and it also sucks in consciousness. So it sucks in this consciousness, and it feels like it's alive, like you're an identity that's alive, moving through time. And the way the identity works is always on seeking to get pleasure and seeking to avoid pain, seeking to survive and seeking to avoid non-survival, seeking love, not seeking to avoid not being loved. All of it's about survival though. And what it does is it creates all these stories about you in your head, about what you're going to do, where you're going to go, and it's always working to try and produce the best outcomes for you. But it kind of goes a little bit loopy because it gets stuck in things. And the reason it gets stuck in things is because you're not genuine with yourself. So somebody not turning up for you on time or forgetting a dinner date or something can play around in your head for hours and hours or days or weeks or something. And basically at the source of it, it's because it challenged your survival at the deepest level. But you can go through many layers of that. You can go through the first initial layer that's the hatred for them, and then you can see that your parents used to do this or your friends used to do this, and then you can eventually get down to the deepest level of they challenged my survival and I feel lonely. But that can go around for hours in your head, and what you'll be daydreaming about is putting them down, how to get one over of them, why you're not good enough, why does it always happen to you? And this creates the idea that you exist as somebody in this imagined land. And this is happening for most people all the time. They've got this internal monologue that's going on with all these feelings that are happening, and it kind of gets very confusing. It feels like you're just running from one place to another in tension, which you are, because you're living firstly in dishonesty. You're not being honest about what you actually feel. And secondly, you are lying to yourself continuously, and it sends all your emotions into disarray. Like if you just tell yourself a lie now, it feels uncomfortable. If you meet a liar, it feels uncomfortable. But the illusory you is constantly in lying. So your body is all out of sync. So your body has the desire to survive, the desire to be liked. And then on the story level, you've got all these complicated stories about how you need to meet the man of your dreams, how you need to have a home on top of a mountain with 100 animals, blah, 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 blah. And your body in each moment is just desiring to survive, which is very simple. So this person that you take yourself to be becomes sucked inside the body, and consciousness gets sucked inside the body, and it feels like that person that's sort of around here, always talking to itself and saying, I choose this, I don't choose this. And then the consciousness is pulled in here too. And energetically, it feels like you're separate from the world. And it's too identified with your feelings, your emotions, and the body. And it feels uncomfortable. Consciousness is free, it's home, it's spacious, it's infinite, it's free. It's not that it's no feeling, like feeling arises in it because that's part of this dream, but it's just free. Whereas when you're here, you're limited and you're always stuck in yourself and what you feel. So is non-duality for you? No. Because you don't exist, you're not alive. Who is this you? You'll notice that this you that you think yourself to be is lots of feelings and ideas appearing in every moment, and it's constantly changing. Who you see yourself to be and think yourself to be is so different from who you were 10 years ago. It's always changing and evolving, and it's not a solid thing. What is solid is the experiencer, is that which is looking out. And that which is looking out isn't separate from everything, and it is no thing, and it's empty. And this you that you take yourself to be is always seeking for a better emotional state, for better things. And basically, deep down, what it's seeking for is survival. It wants to survive, but it gets interpreted into lots of complex ideas. So non-duality is nothing for you. You can't get hold of non-duality. The one that wants non-duality in the human world wants it because it thinks it will make its survival better. It thinks that it will experience more pleasure. But that which hears my voice, not the hearing, but that which is conscious of my voice, that which is conscious of the colour of my skin, of the hair of this room, but conscious of it without knowing, without intellectually knowing. So conscious in this mysterious way, without intellect, this unknowing. That's who you are, this mystery. So it's conscious but mysterious. This is from Markle. What were your misunderstanding, misconceptions of non-duality, which only became apparent after the falling away of the illusion of the separate self? that it had anything to do with the intellect. I still thought it had something to do with the intellect. It was nothing like the intellect thought, or what the person thought. Hey Thomas. Hi Waptek. How to see undiscovered places. I'm sitting in stillness long, or maybe is another active way. Is there any particular activities? For what? Any particular activities for what? Hi Praveen. Hi Lisa, thanks for your words. I always look forward to your live streams. It is the highlight of my week now. I love both your speaking and your silence. Question. Sometimes I feel, thank you. Question. Sometimes I feel very much aware of myself and feel like something is stuck and that I'm trying to get out of something and can't. You talked about being stuck in this me. What should I do in those moments? In those moments, I would go into the feeling. It's all the person can do. The person can't go into consciousness, even though it thinks it can maybe put its awareness in this moment, which you can do in other times, but when there's big emotional discomfort, deal with the emotional discomfort. So, so just put your attention into what hurts. When you feel stuck, where does it hurt in the body? And what's it saying? And the reason that I recommend doing this is it's actually what you're trying to do is you're coming back to what you truly are, and trying to ignore it and ignore the feelings isn't going to work. To ignore the thoughts, you can't beat them with another thought of I'm going to stay aware, I'm going to stay conscious. So just be really honest with what you feel, like use it as an exploration, like what is it that I actually want here? What is it I'm actually uncomfortable about? Who is this illusory me? And you'll see there's just these repetitive thoughts which are keeping the seeking game going, which perpetuate it. So this stuck feeling, you can only feel stuck if you believe you're somebody in time. There's only a person that's born and dies and got this 80 years can be stuck somewhere in the middle of that. Like stuckness is an imagined thing. Like I'm stuck. Where are you stuck? You're always here. Here isn't stuck. It's an idea. I'm stuck. My life is meaningless. I got nowhere to go. I've got nothing to do. I don't know what to do with myself. These are all ideas. And if you go lower than that, it's I don't want to survive. I don't want to be part of this society. I'm afraid to survive. I'm afraid of being part of this society. I'm afraid. I want to die. I don't want to be part of this. And you don't actually want to die as consciousness. You want to die as the person, because for the person carrying around its life of 80 years, it's too heavy for that person. You can only feel stuck if you believe you're in between something. You're never in between something. You're right here. This is all there is. This moment. It's free, it's expansive, it's endless, and it's magic. It's everything you ever wanted. It's just you keep dreaming of something in the future and something in the past, and then you feel like, I'm stuck here. I'm stuck right here. Aren't you explaining it in intellectual level to us though? Isn't it like a dead end to use the intellect to understand it has nothing to do with the intellect? Is there some kind of activity I could engage to lessen the urge of understanding non-duality on an intellectual level? That's what you think I'm doing. Actually, when I speak, I'm actually communicating this energy of space. That's where it comes from, these words. This infinite space. And if you're sensitive enough, you can feel that. If you're addicted to the intellect, then you're just following what I say. The intellect can be healthy and can be helpful. So it can be healthy to get some understanding and some perspective to settle it down. So you've got all these really bad ideas. So it's like using the intellect to conquer those ideas or to lessen them or to fulfill them to an extent of all these questions. So it can be helpful to the intellect, but non-duality is nothing to do with that level. You see, you look at me and you think that I'm talking from time, that I'm somebody that came from time and arrived here, whereas from this perspective there's only here, and there's this Lisa character that comes and goes when needed, and speaking comes out of this emptiness, this vastness, and looking's coming out of this vastness. It's so empty. And anything can happen. Like, it's totally out of control. Like, this body can do anything. It can suddenly start getting up and dancing around, and all of it's coming out of emptiness. It doesn't belong to Lisa. It can start shouting. It can do anything. It's totally surrendering over the reins to this moment rather than the person. This is from Praveen. Shouldn't one plan for the future though? How will that be possible without some imagination or stories? That's different from identifying with that imagination or stories. Just think about how much you imagine the future and how much you actually need to imagine the future in order to plan for the future. Of course you can plan for the future. I have a pension, but only because the government forces me to have a pension. I wouldn't have one if it wasn't that. I don't think I would choose to have a pension. But in France, you have to have one if you're in a certain business type. I have the rest of the year planned out, but how much do you need to think about that? And that's not you. The imagination of the future, of you in the future, isn't you. Can you see that? Do you deeply know that? The imagination of you planning something with the pension in like 40 years isn't you. There is no you. Who is this you looking out? Who you are is consciousness. The you is dead. The you is never alive. It keeps pretending it's alive. It's like an organism pretending it's alive. Sergi. Hi Lisa. After I got into the non-duality subject, I have had flashbacks from my night dreams in reality. It's like everything already has happened and will happen, and I'm just an observer. Yeah. Yes. Thank you. That is the end of the questions. I did that quick. I think it's because I screwed up the beginning of the stream. Hey. I didn't stream for like 20 minutes. I didn't realise the stream was off. It was on, and then I think when I went back to do something, I by accidentally clicked it off. Hello, can you give me some advice on how to overcome social fears? I very often feel uncomfortable with people. Thank you and good evening. Good evening, young sir. Advice. It's just a feeling that happens. I know that's really easy to say, and it's not so easy when you're in social situations, but it's just a feeling. I don't have social anxiety, but I'm super sensitive to what other people feel. So if other people feel confident and relaxed and happy to sit in silence, then that's what I feel. If other people feel angry, then that's what I feel. If other people feel empty, then that's what I feel. I maybe don't feel the level of what they feel, so the level of agitation, level of anger, but I just feel those things. So if I'm with someone that's really insecure, then I just feel that and mirror that back to them. One that's angry or what they want. So I get those feelings, and they're just feelings. Just feelings. They just come up and they pass in this. The reason that they feel so bad for you, more than likely, or why they're so intense, is because you're not being honest with them. So there's dishonesty there. So they're all confused and conflicted, and your body's just going into a deep contraction. You're identified with them, and you're longing to just experience pleasure. So it's just being honest. So where is it that you feel this social anxiety? What is it that you think people will do to you? So you go into the room. So I just go to the base of everything. So you go into a room and you think people are going to kill you. And then your hormones most will be getting balanced, adrenaline arises, that people are going to hurt you, that people are going to take from you. And you just see it for what it is. And this isn't true. You see how that tries to make you be a loner and tries to make you be isolated, how it affects your way of speaking, and just see all of it's not true. All of its ideas arising and disappearing. And it feels uncomfortable. And just see that you feel like they're going to take something away from you. See that you feel that you've got to be someone for them. And that's okay. Just be honest to it. Allow it to come in. You know, those types of feelings that you're having are what we would have felt, when our lions were chasing us, or when we were really in danger, like hundreds and hundreds or thousands of years ago. But now you're having it over interacting with people, that in some way is going to kill you. You can also explore, like if you got traumatized, if you got bullied at school, you can explore the feelings that are there, the thoughts that will form, the ideas that you're not good enough, that people won't like you, and get to know it. And getting to know it will create more acceptance and understanding. And it's a habit. So see it for what it is. It's simply a habit that you've identified with and you've made it you. And then finally, who is this you that you believe yourself to be? See that there's impulses and urges and ideas arising, and they're all collecting together and sucking it in, saying, this is me. But who am I speaking to now? Who looks out of the eyes? Who hears? What is the difference between experiencing and the experienced? So what's the difference between you looking and my face, between your hearing and the heard? So if you shut your eyes now, where is that line between the hearing of my voice and my actual voice? And see that they're one and the same. Thank you. And I'm freaked out by the fact that full moons have so much to deal with my behavior. So much to do, I presume you mean, with your behavior. Yeah, if we're like 90% water, then of course full moons have a big effect on us. Look what they do to the oceans. Any more questions? It's all quiet tonight. There's not that many people. There's only 94 people watching. In my YouTube thing, so I've got this. I haven't got the right app open actually on my computer, but I have it on YouTube to make sure it's going. And on my suggested up next, it says May offers MPs to vote on second referendum. I don't. Yeah, that would be wonderful, wouldn't it? That would be wonderful. This is Brexit. If you aren't following the news. Let me go into YouTube beta. Live events. I have to go into live dashboard, that's why. I see. There you go. Fabrizio. Usually when this social fear arises, I can feel some random disturbing thoughts and often a pain in my heart, like a sadness which springs out of my chest. So then more than likely what's happening to you when you walk into a room full of people is you're instantly telling yourself on the deeper level that you're unlovable. So when it's pain in the heart chakra, the negative thoughts tend to be, I'm not lovable, I'm going to be abandoned, nobody loves me, I'm going to be alone, I can't get on with groups, people are going to hurt me, I have nothing to offer. So this is something you'll have picked up in childhood and you'll have created identity out of it. That can create an identity of, in order to cope with that and to make yourself feel better, you could start saying how most people are assholes, or that society is rubbish and it's a capitalist society and you don't have anything in common with people. And it's a way of dealing with those types of feelings. And the usual thought pattern is about me being someone who is important, but they are recognized as untrue because the stories they tell are just crazy. And the usual thought pattern is about me being someone who is important. Yeah, so this is like another way in which you deal with feeling like you're not enough is you tell yourself the opposite, and then you strive to always be perfect, the perfect person in the room, which is super hard to do and a lot of pressure to always be a perfect person. So then you always try to control people's impression of you, the way people see you. And then any little mistake you make, it's like daggers in your heart. It's a game. Who you are is this consciousness that's everything, this experiencing, which is mystery. You aren't that person. Just acknowledge it. Just see the game that's playing out and the identification with it and the seeking to be loved. And that seeking keeps creating thoughts in your head and ideas and stories about yourself, how you're important, how one day you're going to fix world hunger, how you're going to become super enlightened and then everyone will fall at your feet. All these things. I mean, the enlightenment story is such a big ego thing. I'll become enlightened and then everyone will think I'm wonderful. You'll become enlightened and you can't be bothered. You can't be bothered to be anything. So then having people around you that think you're wonderful is a little bit irritating. Because you don't see yourself as wonderful, you just see yourself as this moment, and then people are trying to put you on a pedestal and you're like, any food? Anybody fancy a chip? Thank you for your honesty though. That's great that you've got to that level of honesty. That you can see that thoughts are trying to make you important. I frequently get into daydreaming and then I become aware of it and yet I continue because it just feels good. And then I get headaches sometimes. It's really laughable. Sometimes it relates to what wrong I see around and what should be done to correct things. And none of these dreams really come true and bring frustration. How do I break this cycle? You have to see what it is that you're trying to get out of the daydreaming. What are you trying to get from it? Like our mind is meant to think and create and be inventive, but what are you trying to get from those daydreams? Like what story is it? Are you the hero? Do you fix everything? Are you better than everybody else? Like, and if that's the case, then it's more than likely like the last person that you don't feel good enough, you don't feel love. Or are you trying to organize the universe because you can't bear its imperfection, or you feel like it needs to be organized and it's more of a solar plexus issue, it's a more controlling issue. You can tell by what sort of stories you're telling yourself, what do you want to be? I always used to want to be super successful or super rich so I could do things like this is when I was a kid, I wanted to buy land so that I could have dogs on this land. Like I had this crazy idea that I would just rescue all the dogs that were in rescue centres and just let them run around free. I didn't realise they'd all kill each other. Or there'd be like massive wars, like of territory. But I used to dream about that. And I used to daydream about having enough money to give my mum all the money she wanted and friends money and having things simple and never having to worry about money. That was one thing I used to daydream about. And it was often altruistic daydreams, and my personality grew up that like a very strong like sense of kindness, and some of that's natural, like we're all born differently, and some of it's that I'm an empath, but another part of it is that I think what I was longing for is somebody to do all those things for me, for somebody to look after me. And so then my mind was projecting that I would look after all these other people. They're amazing what we do. So it was really healing and soothing when I imagined myself looking after people. But really, I think what I was craving was people to look after me. Which, if you know my story, which you maybe think I share, but I don't share much of my childhood story. But if you knew my childhood story, then you'd understand why I craved for that. And I remember, like, I used to have other daydreams. Like, I used to fantasize about the teachers, like, looking after me. Like, it wasn't a sexual thing, but it was like them loving me and looking after me. Like, so when they gave me attention, it felt so nice. Like, especially this feminine, like the motherly quality of them being caring and looking after me. And when that got transformed into my daydreams of that I would look after everyone else. Now look at me, I'm this teacher talking to everyone about freedom. But I can't be bothered to save people. Like, I'm happy doing this amount of work, but I also I can't do it endlessly. Like I'm happy to give a certain amount of energy to it, and then that's enough. Like, I don't slave all day and night to try and save people or to try and help them. I give my videos and I do sessions and some retreats, and that's about enough. And I'm only really interested if people are asking me. Like, in my personal life, like, I wouldn't ever preach this on anyone around me unless they asked. I never heard about your story. As you know, many of us try to, this is Markel, find a pattern or something that was triggered within time and space to let go of the illusory self and allow for the vast open consciousness to be what is. Is there anything within your story that might be considered to be the cause that allowed for the falling away of the illusion of you? I think the most important thing that arose in my story was that I really wanted it. I think that's the cause of anything happening in this life, and it's not just a want intellectually. Like, my whole being vibrated and wanted it. Like, so I put it above work, above play, above creativity, above sex, above kids, above animals, above everything. And that's not something you can talk yourself into. That's a natural thing that arises and is completely impersonal. So I think that's the key. And then life kind of took me on this journey and led me to all these miraculous people and events and situations, and gave me enough obstacles to see the illusion, or for that illusion to be seen through. Often when I'm working with people, like I really encourage them to see, is this what you really want? Or is it that you want to keep looking for a mother? Or is it that you want to keep looking for a savior? Or is it that you keep wanting to look to be successful in your career? Like, and all of this is about you getting these things in time. Or is it that you really want to go home? Or is home only about you getting other things in this life? Like, the way that my story's set up, I made the 4 noble truths of what the Buddha laid out very quickly. Like, really seeing that life is suffering, that a separate life, that when people are separate, life really is suffering, and that there's no refuge in it. Do you still believe in life? That there's no refuge in it. You might have had a really blessed life and keep getting things that you want. But it's not freedom. When you're identified, you're always subject to this idea of birth and death, of growth and destruction, of pain and pleasure, and that's you, that you're part of it. And there's nothing wrong with not wanting it, like it's so impersonal, and you just have to go for what it is that you want. And once you've completed what you want, then maybe it will be non-duality. There's no better or worse, it's all one energy. Who you are is that consciousness. And I do believe, I go on about the law of attraction and karma and all these things, but I do believe that you always get what you want. What was it that happened the other day? I have somebody that comes and helps me clean my house. You basically think I'm so spoilt. I am. I'm really spoilt, but that's something I really like having, is somebody to help me clean my house. I still have to clean without the cleaner. There's still cleaning to be done. But she lives quite far away and she can't always come, so sometimes there's months that the cleaner doesn't come, and then I clean the house, and then sometimes she can come. And then the other day I decided to ask a friend of mine if she knew of a local cleaner that I could just ask to come and help clean my house. And I hadn't heard from my other cleaner for months, I don't think. And within 4 minutes of sending that email, my cleaner wrote to me and said that she could come and clean my house the next day. I hadn't even asked her. I sent out the email asking another friend if she knew of a different cleaner, and then within 4 minutes I got an email saying, I'm in town, would you like me to come and clean your house? I can come and do it tomorrow morning. It's just amazing. Like if you have the right vibration, you get what you want. Most of the time, what most humans are doing is they're telling themselves what they don't want. So say, like, they don't want to be a failure. So they're always telling themselves they don't want to be a failure. So what do you think they attract? Failure. They're always saying they don't want to be poor. You don't want to be poor, then you're always attracting poverty. And it's what you see. It's as if when you go into a room, if you look at blue before going into a room, so you just look at the color blue, and then when you enter a room, all you'll see in that room is blue. But everything is a creation of your mind. But you're not creating your mind, and you're not creating the thoughts that create the mind. Who you are is consciousness, which is creating the mind. But consciousness is doing it without a will. Consciousness creates a will inside the dream. Consciousness doesn't have a will. It's spontaneously creating, and it's so magical. Like, it's just coming out of the divine, and you can feel it right here, but yet it's creating it in a pattern. So it creates a human that has a want to be successful, and it's a pure one, and the whole body wants it, and then it's successful. Has a want to be a failure. In a way, you can see it as love, like you always get what you want, and then that's what's created. But it's coming out of nothing. It's coming out of no place, out of freedom. And it's nobody's want. It's just the way it is. Is the desire to get enlightenment also driven by survival instinct? Yeah, most probably, yeah. I mean, it must be. It's that desire to be free. It's the same pattern. to be free of all the games. And then actually when you fall into consciousness, consciousness doesn't care about surviving. It doesn't care about being popular or loved or successful. And then the body carries on, but it's at a lesser pace. Like the body's appearing out of nowhere, but it carries on with the motion to survive, but it's at a very minute pace. But yeah, of course it must be it's out of the survival instinct. And maybe it's a form of intelligence, or maybe it's a form of survival intelligence when it begins to see that the game is fucked. If you're identified with the person, then it's a life of suffering, it's a life of pain. And then obviously that's not what's desired. So in it's seeing that it's all dead ends with the person. And then ultimately it's life that does it. But yeah, like I really saw that the person had no chance. The identified person had no chance in this life. Maybe waking up and enlightenment is the next phase of human evolution, because now we've got more comfortable in our evolution and food is easier to obtain and shelter is easier to obtain. Maybe the next phase of evolution on the human level is to eradicate this false identity, and that on the survival level, it will be more effective and more productive for humanity to come from that perspective, because that would be a perspective of trust, of more honesty, of openness, helping the environment, compassion. Hi Lisa, I have a topic to talk about, not exactly a question. How changes in me goes with changes in others and the magic of it. Thanks. Hi Quiella. Yeah, isn't it amazing? Because everything that you see is you, is a reflection of you. So you think that energy is working in a logical way, but it's working in a magical way. It's like your dream. And whose dream is that? It's nobody's dream, it's consciousness's dream, but it's coming through the quality of Quella's dream. So as Quella comes more awake and more aware, then it affects and changes the people and the surroundings around her. Hi Sebastian. Hi Lisa, can you say something about fear of failure? It's a habit that you've got from childhood, and it's in the solar plexus, and it creates depression. It creates lack of energy, an inability to complete things. If you keep telling yourself, I'm going to fail, then how can you complete something that you're going to do? There's got to be that inspiration that this is going to be something magnificent. It's self-perpetuating. You're not a failure, Sebastian. You are not a failure. So just feel that in the solar plexus, and when it comes up, feel it, allow it, and then begin to say what it is you want. What you want is to be successful, but you're telling yourself you're afraid of failing, and just allow yourself to be successful. Thanks, Sebastian. Thank you for your answer. They resonate a lot. Pesha Markel. Oops, I always should put this on nice and high, and then you get a better sound. I forget sometimes. Hi, Thane. Hi, Lisa. You said that you would never preach about non-duality to someone unless they ask. My question is, can you talk a little bit about your thoughts regarding giving advice to people around you? I've struggled with knowing how to navigate this. I usually keep quiet, but sometimes I feel like I should volunteer more of my thoughts than I do. Yeah. It doesn't mean that you have to keep listening to people being stuck in the same old patterns and the same old problems. That's what happens when you've got friends or relationships, is that you tend to see them going around in the same circles and you want to point it out. But what you can actually change with them is that they stop telling you these things. Like, they can tell you a couple of times, and if they haven't changed it, then you don't have to listen to it every time you see them. But then this is when you begin to question what friendship is and relationship is, because if you don't let people moan to you and let off gas and validate their story about how life is against them or how this problem or that problem, so if you don't give them something in their story, then do they still want to be around you? So I have that with I had that with a close relative, that over the years I stopped giving advice and stopped engaging in their stories and stopped allowing them talking about certain things, and then over the years they just didn't want a relationship with me so much. And that's the karma of it, and they'll never see it. What they'll see is they'll think, oh, Lisa's changed, she got into this stuff and she's changed. But it's because I don't validate their story of themselves. So, and this is about survival, validating this story of yourself. You've got to stay alive, and then you've got to be real. So I used to be too passive, and again, it's still something I'm learning, and let people talk or moan on about something, or tell me stuff I wasn't interested in now. And now I just try to stop it, not let that happen so much. But it means that I'm Billy No Mates, or Billy Few Mates. I've got Khaleesi. And currently we have William, who is now asleep again on the cushion behind. Khaleesi sees a different dog, so she's out on the balcony watching to see if there's any people coming to invade the property, or there is any animals that she can kill. I always feel like if we had the end of the world and no food and everything, I'd be alright with Khaleesi. She could kill us animals to eat. She could hunt for both of us. You perfectly get the situation. It seems, it's not that I get it actually, it's actually very logical. I don't even know what I've got because I can't remember our previous conversation, but basically the setup of the body is the same in everybody's. So if you begin to tell me some of your stories, I know the stories in which you're attracted to. It seems, in fact, all about how others see me. After the big glimpse experience happened, there is for sure less identification with this but seems there's times that there is even more craziness in thoughts. For instance, if someone is irritating me, the thoughts are literally screaming like, hey, I'm the chosen one. You will get very bad karma by irritating me. Obviously, this story is not believed, even if the body is disturbed by it. Yeah. That's good that you don't believe those stories. Because you're not the chosen one. I know that you don't believe it, but nobody is. No matter how many awakening experiences, there's nothing special about someone that's enlightened to someone that's not. And that's the mind trying to take hold, trying to take its position. And those are some of the thoughts that concern me, that are in, like from last week when we were talking about the gurus. Those are some of the thoughts that are in the gurus that set up certain organizations. They must be in order to in order to organize their surroundings in that way. I mean, what sort of thoughts do you think a person has if they sell the earth they walk on? Or if they allow their organization to sell the earth they walk on? What sort of thoughts is that person having about themselves? Cuckoo, cuckoo, come back to planet Earth. Cuckoo, cuckoo. And then they're believed, and then other people validate them and believe them and buy it. Oh yes, this person walked on this earth. He is the next Messiah or Jesus. Cuckoo! I'm not opposed to there being an energetic resonance. Like, I do think that there is an energetic resonance when you're in somebody's energy. If somebody is expanded and free, then you're going to pick up on it. Just like if somebody is really tight and contracted and angry, you're going to pick up on that. But that's still an experience. When you go out of their space, you can't take it with you. Like, at the end, you've got to begin to see that in yourself. And it can be a support. So in these talks, really, my true teaching is that I'm teaching you in silence. Like, this speaking is coming out of nowhere, and you think it's about the words or understanding, but it's actually about this emptiness. Thank you for your question. Hi, Lisa. From time to time, when having a conversation, the most strange, bizarre thoughts are passing by out of nothing, and they don't relate to the conversation. I'm curious if others have that same experience. Yeah, more than likely. Like, thinking is really weird. Like, it thinks of weird things sometimes. Like, all types of weird things. Who knows where it comes from? I'm sure everyone does have that experience. Hello, Lisa. Your presence is a blessing for us all. Thank you very much. Eugenia from Italy. Thanks, Eugenia. That's very sweet. I don't see it as a blessing for all. If I did, there would be something wrong here. But it's sweet that you say that and that you feel that, and I really appreciate it. But I just see it as love. It's just this urge to express love. If I saw that my speaking was a blessing for everyone that listened, there would be lots of errors in that thinking. Firstly, it's just a thought, and secondly, that can lead to many delusions. All I can say is that the feeling is that it comes out of love or no place. That there's this urge to express love or nothing. But it doesn't feel like it's a blessing for people. It doesn't feel like it's good. It doesn't feel like it's bad. It just feels like it's coming out. And this to me is balance. When you think that what you're saying is grace or it is grace for other people, this is when the ego suddenly comes in the back door and it's like, what I say is grace for other people. It's just in this moment, it's this urge to express love, just like when I'm writing my book. I'm currently writing a book about a cat called Andrew. And it just feels like love, like this love coming out. Andrew, his name is. Andy Wandy, pudding and pie, kissed the girls and made them cry. That is what his owner says to him. And he doesn't like that. He thinks he's very popular with the ladies. Thank you, Lisa, with love. Really, it might sound like I know what I'm talking about, but the feeling is that it just comes out and I'm not really listening. There's just speaking happening, and it just amazes me that everyone seems to appreciate it and it makes sense, and that I come to the right points at the right time. Amazing, Lisa. I am on Wi-Fi at hospital with my mum. She's having an outpatient procedure today, and I'm listening to your live talk here now. Thank you, love, Iz. I love you, Izzy. I hope everything's going well there. It's typo I wrote you. Just answered my question. I'm going to ask, even though you say we don't have free will, it seems as if we do have the ability to block energy love like God. But you just said consciousness creates the mind. So consciousness blocks the mind from being present. The mind can never be present, or the mind is always present. But you still think that the mind is a separate entity that can be present. What waking up is this movement back to this consciousness that's already here. There's something conscious of the mind. You think that an instrument that's coming and going like a robot, like boop, 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 can focus attention on with its free will and be present. But notice that there's something that's conscious of that mind. And that's who you truly are. And waking up is this energetic shift from being this mind that's always like, what can I do? What can I get? How can I get something out of this? To that empty looking that's here all the time, and it is in all things, and it's still, and it's free, and it's infinite, and it's here. Thanks, Marla. Thanks, Izzy. Anastasia. Hi, Anastasia. Hi, Lisa. Do I understand you correctly? If I am changing and expanding, it will affect other people around me. How does it work? Because you think that you're a limited entity. Well, I mean, I can't explain it because it's so much more than I could possibly explain. But firstly, everything is you. Everything is a reflection of you. So that is number one. Oops, I can see I had to move up my camera. So number one, everything is you as consciousness, as wholeness, everything. Everything you see, everything you experience is that emptiness of who you are, that empty looking. So that's one. And number two, that consciousness creates, it's experiencing this world through the sensory perception of the person. So you see others not as they are. You see others through your projection of them, through your mind. So you never see others, you see what you think others to be. And if you think that person is an asshole, then more than likely they're going to be an asshole. If you think that person to be lovely, then more than likely that person's going to be lovely. But people are so energetic, and like before, when I used to be tight and contracted, even though I don't mean to sound really vain here, I'm just being objective, but when I was younger, I was most probably fairly attractive to the opposite sex, or maybe to some of the same sex. I'm not saying I'm super attractive, but there was a certain amount of attractivity to men, from men towards me. And and then as I got older, and then I had this energetic shift, men were way more attracted to me than prior. Even though I was older and less attractive, I became more attractive because of my energy. So I understand that when I walk around in a white body, and I understand that I get positive feedback because of the way I look, but it just wasn't the case here. Like, I didn't feel that when I walked around prior, you know, even though I've got what people say is an easy body to walk around with in society, like it fits in European society, and it's average, fair, good looking people respond nicely to it. It wasn't that way for me. It was when my energy changed and my heart began to glow, then people responded to me with that. And yeah. And it also was confusing for me, because if you look at someone with love and with trust, then what can happen is they can present that to you, is that love and trust. So you look at them and you see light in them, and then they can begin to respond. And that actually was a little bit dangerous for me at first, because I didn't understand that what I was seeing wasn't necessarily the way the person was when I wasn't with them. So even though they could be showing me their best self, not through effort, but just because it's like a resonance of energy, like in the background, they maybe weren't actually like that. Like, so in another situation, that took me a while to understand, but it's the same. So if you go to someone, and if you're glowing with positivity and you see them as light and you see them as love, my God, is that going to profoundly affect how that person responds to you? But also, it's like what you want, you get. So if you want love, that's what you get. If you want intimacy, that's what you get. So after that shift, that was what I wanted from people. So that's what began to happen. Okay. I didn't finish all the questions. But I'm going to finish now, because it is time for me to finish. I have to go. I have somebody coming to pick up William. William, you're going home this evening, aren't you? You're happy you're going home? Isn't he sweet? Hey, William. Hi, William. You're going to say goodbye to people? Yep. He's done. Oh, there he is. He's back. Hello. You're a good boy. You're a good boy. What are you doing? You're a good Okay, so I'm going to go. Thank you so much for being open and sharing and honest and willing to explore. I really enjoyed doing this with you. I will be here again on Sunday, so you can send those questions that I didn't respond to at 6 p.m. French time. French time. Au revoir, my loves. Goodbye.